Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Black and Abroad, an interview series highlighting the lived experiences of Black expats around the world. I am Kendall Tyson, your host, licensed therapist, and a fellow Black expat. And today we have another great episode for you today. And I would like to welcome my special guest, Margo Gabriel. Say hey, Margo.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Kendall.
You are so welcome. I'm so glad that we've had an opportunity to connect. And so just to share with you all a little bit about Margo. She grew up in Boston, Massachusetts. She is currently living her best life in Portugal, where she's been since 2020. She's a freelance writer, cookbook author, and editor. She's the author of the Expat Kitchen cookbook. She's based in Lisbon, Portugal, and she's been featured in the New York Times, HuffPost, and Salon. Her words have been published in Boston Art Review, Cuisine Noir, Edible Boston, Fodor, am I going to say this right? Fodor's Travel.
You got it, yep.
Okay. And Solstice Literary Magazine. I mean, she's everywhere. So which I think is amazing, right?
Thank you.
I would like everyone to just say thank you again, Margo, for joining us. How are you today?
I'm doing fabulous. I'm super excited for our conversation. Again, I've heard great things about you, and I enjoyed your chat with Shar not too long ago. So super happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Great words from a great person, right? Well, I think before we even get started, one of the things like we said before we started, recording was just the spider web of connections that we've been able to formulate just from meeting people, connecting with people. And I'm wondering, have you noticed that being able to be connected with so many good people, how has that shaped your life while living abroad?
I often tell people like moving here has been so transformative. And I felt like it became my word in 2020. It wasn't, my word of the year at the start of 2020, but when I landed here, I was like, okay, let's see what Lisbon has to offer. And we were still pretty much in a strict lockdown. So being able to connect with individuals like Shar and the other wonderful people that I've been able to meet here has really it's changed my life. And, speaking with some friends last night, I was saying, I can't imagine not knowing and not having the people that I have in my life right now.
Yeah.
Like if I had moved here, it's really, I don't know, it's very special to me, I'll say.
Yeah, I can tell. I think it's been a really good thing. So before we go any further, one of the famous questions that I definitely like to start with is, can you share with us, who is Margo Gabriel? Who are you?
Of course. I'll do the short version. So I'm a Haitian American creative, freelance writer, and culinary creative. My parents are from Haiti, and I've only been there once. I'm hoping to visit it again in the future, but I like to tell people that I'm primarily an introvert. Most people don't believe me, but I am. And I love connecting with people. I love hearing their stories and, learning what motivates them. And I think being an avid reader as a kid always just pushed me to be curious. So I always lead with that, what were the things that inspired you? And I think, learning about food and being a food writer has just really push me outside of my comfort zone. And that I do appreciate. So I consider myself an introvert, but always curious about learning about other people. And I like to think that I'm funny. So I'll say that. My brother doesn't think I'm funny, but so yeah, I tell people that I'm a creative and always curious about things. And I love to laugh.
And you have a great smile on top of that. So
thank you.
I am just so intrigued in the food blog and the food writing. Where did that begin? Did it begin out of a love for cooking? I noticed that you have a cookbook that you've created. Where can you trace maybe the genesis of this particular part of your journey?
I will say growing up, I didn't like cooking only because it didn't interest me, but really I'm grateful that my mom and my older sister taught me how to cook, because that like came in so handy when I landed here and became very, homesick and nostalgic over Caribbean cuisine. And I was like, all right, now I gotta recreate these dishes with certain spices and things like that, that I can't, bring from home. But being that Lisbon is a pretty diverse city and they have a pretty large Indian and Asian community and African community as well, it was really nice to, go on a hunt for these spices and recreate some of the dishes that reminded me of home. So I do love to eat. And just being, I think, homesick kind of pushed me to get back in the kitchen and recreate a lot of the Haitian recipes that my mom and my older sister taught me. And so at the start of 2021, I started cooking more and having some friends over. And one of them was like, you should write a cookbook. And I was like, I'm definitely more of a food writer, but I started testing recipes and, sending friends my leftovers and things like that. And then really started thinking like, okay, maybe this is like a thing. And I mean, I'll eat anything I make, but like, when it's cooking for other people, I'm like, ooh, are you just being nice? And so, just really loving to entertain people. And then just this move here, connecting with my friends and really feeding them. And that is all part of like what I love to do, is just connecting people. So it really just happened organically. And I was like, okay, let's see how this is going to go, and started giving myself deadlines and really leaning into the community here. And they just came through. There was a friend I met here at a local restaurant. She's into photography, so she handled the photography for me. A friend in Virginia, did the wine pairings. I love music, so I created a playlist. And just, because we were in the pandemic, I was like, all right, how can I get people to connect with me, even though maybe they can't come to my home? So I was like, this cookbook is the culmination of that, my love for culture, people, and food. And super grateful that, people rallied around the idea. And then to answer the other part of it, the question is, I've always dreamed of being a writer. And words just always really moved me, and the way people can craft a story around a concept or their upbringing. I was like, yes, this is what I want to do. So I started my blog in 2018, and it was just to kind of document the places I traveled to. And I'm really grateful for my brother, Peter, for encouraging me to launch the blog, because that really allowed me to pitch to publications like Cuisine Noir when I didn't have any, I didn't have a real portfolio. I didn't have any, done, like, I wasn't published in any publications. And so when I contacted the editor at Cuisine Noir, she was like, do you have any clips? I was like, I got a blog. So that really, opened the door for me. And I was like, very green, but so grateful that she took a chance on me. So again, just, stepping outside of my comfort zone and not being afraid of, getting a no initially is really sort of what got me here.
Yeah. It's always funny how when these conversations that I have, one of the things that we all tend to have in common is that the things that we begin to do is based out of a need that we notice that we have for ourselves, or there's a niche to be filled in the area that we now reside. And so being able to lend our creative pursuits, whether we consider ourselves creative or not, to kind of just share like our gifts and our talents and the things that we need to feel better with our community.
Definitely. And it's like this whole, not experiment, but this whole experience like has really taught me like it's so important to, connect with others. And you just never know, like if you're not sharing your ideas, if you're not sharing the projects that you're working on, you don't know who can assist you or encourage you to keep going when you want to quit. And that's been super invaluable for me. It's just like, just put it out there, let people know what you're working on. You never know what could happen.
I know that, being, Black women that are educated, hardworking, high performing, really putting ourselves out there, for the world to critique, although we get lots of that unasked for.
For
When
sure.
it really comes toward like our passions and things, that can be a really scary thing. So I'm wondering, when you finally make the decision, I'm gonna go for it, right? Can you help us understand, like, who did you lean on, for support to kind of help encourage you and quell those doubts and fears, that imposter syndrome, as you began through this process?
That's a really great question. My shout out to my therapist. She's
Amen. Dr.
amazing.
Robeson in Houston all day, every day.
She is
Like,
amazing. I
yeah,
mean, and I'm relatively new to therapy,
right.
but so grateful, so grateful that I started it when I did
Yeah.
4 years ago, because yeah, I was like, I can't do this by myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and unfortunately, in the Black community, specifically as women, like we have that very harmful stereotype of, okay, I'm gonna take care of myself. Like I'm just gonna handle it myself. And, that's not sustainable. And I was realizing it just was no longer sustainable for me. And so it was really uncomfortable having to, be vulnerable and ask for help. I'm still learning to exercise that muscle. But one thing that I really always like think about that my therapist shared with me was like, it's so important to consistently challenge your fears, because
Mm,
they're emotions, and I was like, okay, yeah, that's good. So really, questioning those doubts and saying, well, okay, I want to write for the New York Times or whatever. If I don't send them a pitch, they're never going to know who I am.
right.
And, it might take 10 no's before you get a yes. So I go through that process mentally with everything I do. It's like, okay, am I moving abroad? How's that gonna look like? What are the potential roadblocks? So I have to really mentally like work through those ideas. And the same thing with the book. I was like, okay, I've never written a book before. This is going to be interesting. And the support here with Shar and my friends, Hawote, Cinnamon, Julie, like they've just really come through, like every time where I'm just like, I don't want to do this, or I don't know. And they're like, you got this, So those two components, like having a therapist and then also just having people who really support you and see your potential, like that's so
Yeah.
invaluable. Super,
Yeah.
super, super invaluable.
I really appreciate that, because clearly one of the components of these particular interviews is, speaking about the role of mental health as
For
we,
sure.
sojourn on these journeys, as we live abroad, as we, dive into our creative endeavors. Because in our communities, it has not been a topic that has been
Mm-hmm.
one of interest, for a variety of reasons,
Yeah.
right? And that's definitely one of the bedrocks, the foundations of why I've chosen to do this particular type of platform. But
Mm.
there's something that you just shared, is when others see your potential. I just wonder sometimes that we get so mired in our situation, in our struggle, and it's so difficult for us to give ourselves permission to see the potential or all of the greatness that other people see that we exhibit. What do you
For
think
sure.
about that?
Um, I wholeheartedly agree with everything you just said, because it's it's really been my experience.
Yeah.
Before pivoting into freelance writing, I was working in academia, in like the finance part of the university, and it was not a creative job, but that was my career because I was too afraid to step outside of my comfort zone.
Uh,
And my degree's in English, but I was working in the accounting field, and it was not fun. And I think my brother was just like, he's a creative also, and he was like, what what are you doing? And he said, something that really resonated with me. He was like, if you don't start this blog, somebody else is going to, and you're going to regret it. And I was like, that stuck. And I said, I just need to start. I just need to start and really believe in myself. Because that was lacking, like, honestly. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna pitch. And, the first person that gave me my first yes as an interview guest was chef and food stylist Elsa Scott. And I'm just so grateful, that she was like my first yes. And that really just changed everything in my career, pursuing writing. And so when that happened, I was like, okay, let's do that again. Let's send another pitch and another pitch. And it's so important for me to stop and like reflect on how far I've come. And that, sitting in that gratitude helps me to not get so consumed and swallowed up by imposter syndrome, because that does come and that does happen. And, it's crazy. And so I'm like, I have to check myself, like, you need to read your resume again because
exactly.
Yeah, it's just, it happens often. And the confidence really comes when I have to, when I am in gratitude, like you've accomplished this, you've been nominated for this, like, and just really sitting down and looking like, wow, Margo, you accomplished this. Like, you're making your dreams come true. Like, your 15-year-old self is like crazy happy right now. So, I have to periodically do that to not feel like, oh, you're not doing enough, because that happens all the time.
And
So I'm like,
wow.
it's, oh man, absolutely. So it's a continuous process to, like, nurture my inner child and recognize that that's a real thing. Because before therapy, I was like, what is that? Like, is that real? Because I was like, this is all made up.
It's real.
But it's just, again, therapy has really helped me shape my mindset around so much.
That's so amazing. I'm so grateful for the transparency. So there were two things that you just said that I really want to follow up on. And one of them is when you shared that in those moments when that inner critic is really loud and that fear is blazing, it's reminding yourself like, oh, no, I've been able to do this and this and this, what we call like a credit list, right? A running record of accomplishments that you've earned, not been given, but earned. And how that kind of helps to light your fire and help you to stay motivated. And another thing that I heard you say was speaking to your 15-year-old self, right? So I wonder, if you were sitting right across from your 15-year-old self, what is something that you would tell her to keep doing to get to where you are today?
That's a really good question. I would say keep writing, because there was a moment where I just stopped writing, and just did not consider, a career as a creative, as a writer. So keep writing, and you're talented, and it's important to have writers and creatives that look like you. So
representation.
It's really, representation is so important. Like, at that age, I didn't know any Black food writers. I didn't know that even could be an option for me. So
you've been able to, you're literally living the dream that you had however many years ago. So that should definitely, I hope, be a testament to whatever the vision is that you have now. It's most certainly possible, because you're in the midst of what you wanted before.
Definitely.
I noticed, I didn't even ask this question, which is a question that I normally always ask at the beginning. Okay. Can you share with us like the journey into living abroad? I noticed that you had a career that was different from the one that you're currently in, like most of us. This is like my third career. So I'm curious, share with us like the beginning of your journey.
Of course. So in 2018, I came to Lisbon on vacation. And it was sort of random because Portugal really was never on my radar. I would come to Europe almost annually. And I'd go to France or I'd go to Italy or Spain, even, and Portugal never really, made the list. And I was traveling to Mozambique that year, and they had a little layover, and they're like, "You want to spend 4 days here at no extra cost?" I was like, "Bet, I'll be there." And that's what landed me here. And so I was like running around the city trying to take everything all in. And I was like, okay, I want to come back here. I felt like the city's energy was really unique, and the light in the city, if you're a photographer or you appreciate architecture, is just really beautiful. And so the plan was to come here and live for 1 month in December of 2020. I made that sort of decision at the top of the year in January 2020, not knowing, 3 months later, what was to come.
Right.
And so I'd say in June of 2020, I was like, working from home and just not feeling like being in the States anymore. So I was like, okay, well, let me see if I could apply to live abroad, even if it's temporary. And, with COVID, everything was up in the air, and I, applied for a visa to come here, and it got approved. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. Literally, I was like, all right. So I just continued the process and sent the paperwork in for what they requested. And I don't think it I don't think it really hit me that it was all happening. I was just like, all right, I got to go to the consulate today and drop this off. And then when, my visa was approved within a month, I was like, okay, now I got to, break this to my family. And so I told them literally like 2 weeks before I was going to fly out, and they were just like, are you well? I was like, so here's the thing.
Yeah.
I want to test this out, see if I like it. If I don't, I could always come back. Boston's always going to be home. And, I knew I was going to love it. I had a great time, went home for the holidays in December 2020. And then I've been here since that time. But again, like to go back to, you have to take that shot. You have to, if it's something that you really desire and you're like, all right, let's see where this takes me.
Yeah.
Go for it. If you get a no, then all right, that wasn't for you. Like you move on.
Exactly.
And so this has just been like, man, such an amazing experience. It's been scary because I'm like, what are you doing?
I hear you, but there's this concept, as a therapist that we tell clients is, if your goals aren't really frightening you just a little bit, are you really stretching yourself? And I think that's the key. Choosing to move abroad is a stretch in itself, and everybody is not going to have the opportunity, and I would even say doesn't necessarily have the internal capacity to do this, right? So I'm curious, now that you've been in Portugal for two years, right?
Coming up on 2 years this fall.
Coming up on 2 years. Yeah. How do you think not only have you changed, but has this experience expanded your life?
Really great questions. Yes, I definitely feel like, this whole experience has changed my life for the better. The people that I've met, I really can't imagine not having them in my life, and that for me is like super important to have these connections, these relationships, and to be able to write about it. Like that for me is like such a privilege and an honor to be able to share their stories and share this new community with, my community back in Boston, and just to let, people, young people who look like me or who look like us, to know like you literally can accomplish anything. And I think, the example of my parents, like, coming from Haiti and like landing in the United States, speaking very limited English, like that to me will always be powerful. And I'm like, they accomplished so much. Like, of course I can, and so I really remind myself of that like regularly. And I think that's, part of the reason why I've chosen to be a writer is because our stories definitely need to be told. And they're so rich Exactly. And yeah, I think it's super important, the type of work that, we choose to do, and the way we tell our stories. So yeah, moving here has most definitely changed my life for the better. And
Yeah.
it's expanded just my worldview and, my understanding of the diaspora in a greater capacity, because, growing up in the States, you have like this one view of the Black experience, and we're so layered. So I'm really grateful to be here.
Thank you. I'd like to know, what do you think your parents would say about the growth that they've seen you make?
I will say my family, they're like, I wasn't like a cook in the family. I will say that. I'm not the best cook.
Okay.
But with launching like the dinner series that I've been doing since last year, and introducing the local Lisbon community to Haitian cuisine and culture and history, like they're like, did you make this? Like, you never cooked this, when you were home. I'm like, I didn't have the time. So it's been very exciting to really explore, my Haitian background and culture, and share that with others here, and to see, them receive it, and them enjoy, Haiti's national dish, which is, called soup joumou, and we
I
have
was
that on
thinking
the
that, right?
1st. It
Yeah.
honors, it celebrates our independence, and that to me is like really the icing on the cake, to be able to bring people together,
Mm.
around food, around culture, music, history, and all that good stuff. So I hope I answered the question.
You did.
Okay.
I can see like what you're sharing, the development of who you are, and how your culture is the through line for it all, which kind of segues into the next question that I have, that is more mental health related. When you think back to, growing up or being in community with other people, what were, if you can recall, any messages or attitudes when it comes to mental health in your community?
Ooh, okay. I will say, in the Haitian community, they're like, have you prayed about it? Or or
Listen,
we're gonna get the prayer warriors to come over and pray over you. I'm like,
ma'am.
thanks. I appreciate it, but I kind of need to talk to a therapist. So it was very nerve-wracking to share, with my circle of friends and family, like, yeah, I'm talking to a therapist.
Yeah.
And being in community with my peers who are also in therapy, and it's not, it's no longer scary for them to like say, like, to verbalize, like, oh,
Yeah.
I have a therapist. For me, that was so hard to say, just to like literally vocalize, like, oh, my therapist appointment is this afternoon,
Yeah.
and now
Yeah.
I'm like, do you need a therapist? Like, now I'm like sending links to people. So it's
Yes,
so
ma'am.
liberating, and there's definitely still a stigma
Yeah.
within the Asian community, within the African diaspora, really, um, around seeking mental health assistance. And it shouldn't be, because, even when things are good, it's okay to, have access to those resources. And I do want to shout out a nonprofit organization that's based in Massachusetts that I used to be a part of. It's called What's on Your Mind, Inc. And it's run and founded by Teresa Alphonse. And she's
Mhm.
a mental health professional, and just really, she's the main reason why I started being okay with like talking about mental health issues openly. And she
Yeah.
hosts events and things like that. And to see, our community come together and take advantage of those resources in the Massachusetts area was like really powerful. So that really led me on my journey to seek a therapist, and to be okay with talking about it publicly, and also encouraging others, like, hey, yeah,
Yeah.
you can be religious and have faith, but it's also important to talk things out, and be okay with that.
That's great. I would hope that you can, well, at the end of the interview, in the show notes, please provide me with a link that
I
people
will,
can go
yeah.
to and support the nonprofit in Boston. We need more individuals that are
Yeah.
community focused, but we also need the community, right, to show up when the things are being offered.
Yeah,
I know that I've
absolutely.
tried to do a few things when I was back home for summer,
Mhm.
and having this drive and this will and knowledge
Mhm.
that yes, this is great, this is what we need, right? And it's
Right.
low, it's not it's high impact, and it's I'm trying to think of the word to say. It's not this thing that is in your face going to make you feel bad, all of that, right? It's
Mhm.
a very
Mhm.
easy entry, but the
Yeah.
impact can be magnified. The
Mm.
challenge can be sometimes is when we don't show up for the individuals that are trying to create the space that is
Yeah.
present, right? A lot of
Right.
times
Right.
we complain, and rightfully so, that there's no one there for us, or, there's not the services provided, but it's kind of like, well, when people venture out to provide the service for you, we kind of
Right.
need you to show up so that we can continue
Exactly.
to demonstrate why it's necessary for us to keep doing these things. So
Definitely.
um, yeah, I'm grateful for you sharing that information. I would like to know, when it comes to being a Black woman in Portugal, doing all these new things, stretching yourself, how has that impacted your mental health, one? And what has it looked like for you to engage with your community to be your best self while doing all of these new things?
Mm. Um, I really love your questions, I want to say.
Thank you. That's giving me some, okay, I'm doing it right.
um, let's see. So can you repeat it? I'm sorry.
I tend to have these bifurcated questions, right? What does it look like for you to manage your mental health through these processes? Because it can be a lot.
Okay. Okay.
And how have you engaged with your community support?
Mhm.
A term I learned, your constellation of care, um,
Mm.
while in Portugal, and
Yeah.
doing all these new endeavors.
Okay. Awesome. Um, I love to journal. I've been journaling since probably maybe middle school.
Yeah.
And it's really a wonderful way for me to just get my thoughts out and work things through, in addition to my therapy sessions. So I'd say I do that quite often. And then also self-care has like really taken a large importance in my life as I've gotten older. So slowing down, unplugging, and
Yeah.
you know, sort of not being so rushed. I think that that's like one of the main things that I've noticed in my move here is like, coming from Boston, it's such a fast-paced city, and like everyone's always in a rush to get somewhere.
Yeah.
And I realized it took me maybe like 2 or 3 months to like really slow down. Mind you, I didn't know anyone, didn't have anywhere to go, but I was just like, all right, I need to do this, that, and the other. And my local friends here, they're like, you don't have to do that
Girl, sit
anymore.
down.
Yes, I was really funny. I was like, yeah, you're right. I'd always be just like super pressed about doing this or doing that. And it was just a byproduct of, coming from, a place like Boston. So finding new ways to self-care was really, interesting. And I I don't mind being in my own presence, and like, I don't have to be in the mix all the time. So, spending a lot of time at home, and becoming a plant mom. Like I don't have a
Girl,
green thumb, and now
and you know my
I've
background.
managed to keep one alive. I started with
Right.
two, but that's okay. So like doing things for myself, and like taking, time to go to the beach or being in nature, consuming art, like, watching documentaries or going to an art exhibit. So those things really keep me creative. So I always tell people, if I'm like, dealing with writer's block, then that means like I'm not taking care of myself in a creative sense. So I have to live life in order to be inspired to, write stuff. Or, I love listening to music, and I have, a few playlists that I enjoy listening to when I'm at home and things like that. So I'd say like just spending a little bit more time writing, doing journaling and things like that, and cooking for myself as well.
Yeah, a really good diversified list of things. Because that kind of like eliminates me asking the next question, what are some things that you do to take care of yourself? But I really like the point that you made about being more aware when I'm struggling in this area. That's probably a good, predictor that I'm not doing something that's going to help me to better engage with myself and with the world.
Right.
So taking that time to slow down and be present so that you can engage with
Mm-hmm.
yourself in a different way, that's going to help you to be able to continue in these endeavors that you are moving into, which I think
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
are amazingly awesome. We'll definitely have to get the link for how to purchase the cookbook, and how to
I'll
follow
send that over.
you. So when you think about like the advancement of mental health in our respective communities of the diaspora, what would you envision it to look like in the near future?
That's a really good question. I would I would hope that, the stigma is no longer there,
Yeah,
and people are more open to readily saying like, hey, I have a therapist, maybe you'd be interested in connecting with them. Or I know there are so many platforms now available for like, men's groups, or, women's groups, or, helping the youth. And I'd love to see more of that, honestly, and assisting a lot of the diaspora just to be okay with like opening up. Because I noticed, specifically growing up in a Haitian American household, like it's not okay. It's not encouraged to be vulnerable or to like cry and things like that, or to, express,
yeah.
your care for someone. It's like, okay, you got a roof over your head and the lights are on, and
Bare
there's dinner on the
necessity.
table. Yeah. And
Yeah,
so just for me in my journey, like learning about what our love languages are, learning about those things that can keep us, that make us human.
yeah.
And I'd love to, see more conversations around that. And I think we're heading in the right direction, just to kind of see like the younger generation, open to
Yeah.
having a therapist and things like that.
Yeah, there's definitely, I would say, a generational divide
Yeah.
where, let's just say, our parents and definitely their parents, it was more about survival and providing and making sure that you're safe,
Mm-hmm.
and able to grow up unencumbered, to
Right,
get to the
right,
place that you are now, right? And now that we
right.
have a different level of liberation and freedom and understanding, we can move through the world. I won't say without struggle, because we know that it's a daily struggle, but
For
we
sure.
have more opportunity, and then being able to pass that on, open the door mental health wise for sure, for
Mm-hmm.
others to see that no, the picture doesn't have to be perfect. Perfection doesn't
Mm-hmm.
exist, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that you have so much greater opportunity to be softer, to
Yeah.
not be okay. And to know that you're gonna have a soft space and a safe space to land in the event that you need it. Um, so I agree with you that as our generations continue to propagate, that the messages, I think, are being more widely accepted when it comes to mental health
Mm-hmm.
and community support. um, I just hope
Definitely.
that it moves a little bit quicker.
Yes. Yes. Definitely. And
For sure.
you're saying what you just said really reminded me of this tweet that I saw someone had shared, and it really resonated with me. The writer of the tweet was like, our parents were tasked with, surviving. And, now our generation were tasked with self-actualization. And I was like, oh my goodness. Like
Yeah,
it was, I'll have to send it to you. I was like,
yeah,
this is it. Like that's
yeah,
absolutely so true.
yeah,
And it doesn't come without like struggles, as you said, but it's such a different time. And it's a privilege really to be able to pursue the life that we want,
yeah.
and in the way that we're doing it. And yeah, I was just like, man, that is so powerful.
It really is. It makes me think of this quote that Frederick Douglass has said: without struggle, there can be no progress.
Mm-mm.
And our people are no stranger to struggle by any means, right?
Absolutely.
One of the things that I hope for is that we can begin to understand that in order to be in a good space, it doesn't have to involve struggle. And that managing and dealing with the struggle that's going to be there can look very different than what it's looked like in years past. Again, because we have more resources, we have more things available to us to help us move into these healthier ways of dealing with trauma. First off, acknowledging trauma.
Okay, talking about it.
You
All
can't
these
deal with
family
anything
secrets.
eating.
It has to end.
Yes. What does my mama say? Breaking these generational curses.
Okay.
On a daily basis. That's a word.
A whole word, really.
A whole word. I just, it makes me feel excited about what is coming, what's here, what more that each of us individually and collectively can do to continue to push our communities forward in the lovingest of ways. And so as I think about that, I want to ask you, what are some things that you believe that you either do directly or indirectly that tap into your gifts and positively impact the communities that you reside
in? Another awesome question. I definitely feel like, my ability to encourage others and to speak positively, over the dreams or the goals that they share with me. I'm always like, wow, honored that people, feel comfortable enough with me to say, hey, I'm thinking about this idea. What do you think? And I'm like, let's do it. Let's brainstorm and think about who we can plug in to make that a reality, because that really excites me. And I genuinely believe if you have an idea and, you are open to sharing it, it could become a reality, really. It just takes a little practice, a little hard work, and it'll take time, of course. So I feel like, my contribution is really helping people believe in themselves and having that confidence, because I feel like that's what people have, given to me, really, is pouring into me in ways that, I didn't maybe see at the time, but now I'm like, whoa, that opportunity and that connection has allowed me to not be so afraid to step out, on faith and say, all right, cool, I'm going to send this pitch, or I'm going to reach out to this person. And so I really love, talking with my friends and others and thinking, okay, I hope I can impart something positively to you, and you can, pay that forward. Because that's really, the way my parents raised me. They're like, all right, you have the power to really change your life, honestly. So
we really do. And that's, when you think about that, that's a lot. That's a lot of responsibility. And it makes me just think about, well, clearly we have the skill. We packed up and moved to other places in the world. And not only are we able to survive, but we're thriving. And there's so much more that's able to be born out of the risk that was taken to even get to this point.
For sure, for sure.
Which I walk down the street some days and I still get hit by something that you manifested over a decade ago. You're in the middle of it, and there's more seeds that are being planted because you chose to come here.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
I'd like to know. I've asked this of all of the women in Portugal. I've already said it. I'm super jealous. I can't wait to get there.
We can't wait to have you, honestly.
How has tapping into the communal network of Black women in Portugal helped you to thrive where you are?
Oh man, in so many ways. From the encouragement to write the cookbook, the encouragement to start documenting my life here and writing about it. And oh man, I saying yes to opportunities. And even if it's a tentative yes, like each person that I've met here, each woman that I've met here, really has just contributed to my growth here. And also just like my self-confidence, really. They're like, yeah, you can totally do this. Let's do a brain dump session and figure out how we can make this happen. Or even, pursuing my freelance writing career. Everyone here has been so instrumental in supporting my events, sharing my events. Yeah, I honestly can't imagine my experience here without them.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, now so we're waiting on you.
As soon as I'm done with Beijing, I am on the way. I don't know if it's temporary or permanent, but I know it's so weird. Like Portugal has always been somewhere that I wanted to visit.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like always. And then to connect with people that are there, I'm just like, okay, I already know what this is. And just the welcoming, like we've not met in person, but I can definitely say that people know each other after this.
For sure.
And it's like, words don't often escape me, obviously, but it feels there's just this level of hope and like readiness to see what does this next leg of the journey look like.
For sure.
I don't think that I'll live full time in the US again. I'll be there, but I know that part of my time is gonna be spent intentionally living abroad because it's just a level of freedom that
absolutely.
I've never been able to experience.
Absolutely.
In the States.
Absolutely.
What do you think?
Yeah, no, I remember talking with an interviewer not too long ago, and I was like, they asked me something similar, and I said, I can just be here. I can exist, and it's like, I don't have to worry about microaggressions or anything like that. Not to say that, those things don't happen here, but, being here has really afforded me, a lot of peace. And I'm not dealing with anxiety attacks and panic attacks and things like that, like I was in the States. And that's just a fact, So, and constantly being in that space where I'm like on edge and super stressed, I couldn't really write and produce work creatively that I, was proud of. It might have taken me a lot longer, but here it's like, I've had the privilege of like publishing a book and, hosting dinners and meeting incredibly inspiring people, and being able to like connect with them. And I don't think I'd have that same opportunity living in the States. So for me, it's really like reigniting my, creative heart and just like, I feel lighter, So yeah, I'm very, very grateful to have had this experience.
Yeah. So it sounds as if it's a risk well deserved.
Definitely.
Right?
Definitely.
The right decision.
Yeah. So it's like, it's a great experience, but it's also, I'm hoping I inspire others to, maybe if you want to do it temporarily, for weeks at a time, to know like it's most definitely possible. It really, I think a lot of times people may think, oh man, this is not, within reach for me.
Right.
But it's really possible. Like
I always ask people, why not you?
Yeah, exactly.
Why not you? Like we get in our own way a lot of the time. So what does it look like to remove yourself as a barrier and give yourself permission?
Yeah. It's like no more self-rejecting. Like we're not doing that. Go after every opportunity.
Because they are there for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder, what are you most proud of?
Wow. I will say that I took this chance, that I, kept going to those appointments at the consulate and bothering the consulate agent there. She was so sick of me. Thank you, Rita, if you end up watching this. But just taking the chance, honestly. And, like you said, why not me? Like, why not me? Uh,
Yeah,
so yeah, just taking the chance on myself.
fabulous. When you think about all of the experiences that you've had since you made the decision to move to Portugal, what do you think has been one of the most impactful moments of your time?
Oh man. I'd say being able to like talk to my mentors and like chatting with them, and they're like, man, like this is the happiest we've ever seen you. And that was like so affirming.
Yeah,
So and even, talking to like my peers, and I respect them so much. Um, so yeah, just being able to like connect with them and inspire them, but also like, having those words of affirmation spoken over
yeah,
me is like super powerful.
yeah. I appreciate that. It's one thing to be able to connect with the people that have poured into you to help move you along in your journey, and for them to see like the transformation um, is a gift in itself, right? Especially in the ages that we live
Mhm.
in right now with so much going on.
Absolutely. Yeah,
I I have just a few more questions. One that I
sure.
really am interested in. Well, I'm interested in all of them, obviously.
Okay.
When you think about non-negotiables in your life, things that you absolutely must have, um, what are some of those non-negotiables that you know you have to have in order to, on a daily basis, show up as your best self more consistently?
Mm, that's a really good question. Man, that's a really good question. I guess I'd have to say just like consistently making time for myself, and not saying yes to everything. Like I know I
Mm,
said it's important to say yes in terms of like work opportunities or just opening yourself up to connecting with others. But as an introvert, it can be a challenge to consistently, I guess, open myself up to those opportunities. But sometimes I'll say yes, and it's like it should be a no. So, that
yeah,
respecting my limitations, I should say,
yeah,
um, and not beating myself up for maybe not attending an event or something like that, and just knowing like, all right, you can't be at every event, or you can't, say yes to everything, because you're human and you still need to, focus on your career, because I'm not on vacation as
right.
as much. Yeah, I'm not retired or whatever. So, um, you know, recognizing, I'd say, like my limitations, and being okay with. It's like, all right, it's gonna be a quiet weekend. So for me, it's like I have to just like respect that and not have, uh, sort of a self betrayal where it's just like, all right,
Yeah,
I'm here and now I'm not even happy, and now I'm just like a Debbie Downer or whatever. So for me,
yeah,
it's just like, all right, Margo, what do we, do you really want to do this? What are we doing today? Um, so yeah, I'll say like that. It's like trying to grapple with the people pleasing
mm,
thing,
yeah.
growing up as a kid of the immigrants. It's just like, okay, you got to be perfect. It's
I
like, you
really,
don't got to do that no more, So,
yeah. Oh,
so
it's giving yourself a new
yeah,
license, right?
yeah,
To ex, to show up differently, right? Expectations
exactly.
are different.
Yeah.
And as you were talking, what I heard was, being okay with not having to do everything because you're less often looking at things from a place of lack, right? I think one of the things that I've noticed in some of the conversations and with myself as well is feeling like you got to do all the things in order for you to make an impact. And I wonder, what are your thoughts on that?
That's a really great question. I definitely, feel like I'm still sort of grappling with that because there's just so many talented people here in Portugal. And I'm like, man, I want to interview this person and I want to, capture this. And it's like, just chill, so sometimes I really have to just like slow down and say like, this is probably not the time to whip out your camera, Margo. Like, just sit out and be present in the moment. And so I really have to like give myself those pep talks, and not force myself to try to just go crazy with like capturing everything. And it's like, all right, maybe now's not the time, maybe later, or maybe there'll be another opportunity to be here at this conference or whatever the case may be. So just still like, trying to practice on improving in that area, I'll say.
Yeah. So it sounds like being like my word of the year for 2022 is intentional.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was on another friend's video blog the other day talking about with that word, with choosing the word being intentional, it is knowing that I get to choose where I show up, right? We have obligations, but knowing that if I want something to work out in its best form, being very intentional about what it is I'm choosing to divert my energy to, and when I'm choosing to rest. Because that's new. A new concept for me is giving myself, even as a mental health professional, giving myself the permission to rest and take it easy and know that everything out there isn't for me. And that doesn't mean that I'm going to miss something.
Yeah. I agree with that for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So when you think about, you said there's so many talented and creative people in Portugal. If you were to speak directly to the young Black creatives that hopefully, will watch this, what would be some words of wisdom that you'd like to offer them?
I'll say, don't count yourself out. Like, you have your unique skill sets and talents, and you really never know where, those talents can take you. So open yourself up to, new opportunities, to meeting new people, maybe learning a new language, because you never know. This life is so rich. And our ancestors have contributed so much to the world, and our culture is global. I would say that. So, you can most definitely do it. Whatever it is that you were set out to do. But this is what I say to the young people in my family. Like, we're amazing people, and it's don't ever count yourself out. Like, really, you got to bet on yourself. Always. So, yeah.
Words of wisdom. So I'm almost finished, but if you
okay,
as an expat now, right, bona fide expat, if you have this opportunity again, would you make the same decision?
Absolutely. I wish I'd done it sooner.
I'm like, I could have been doing this.
Okay, but yeah, definitely would do it again.
Fabulous. So I would like for you to share with us, one, where we can get copies of the cookbook, how we can continue to follow your journey. I will include all this information in our show notes, but want to hear from you first.
Okay, thank you. Thank you again, Kendall, for having me. This was amazing. You really made my day. This is such a wonderful conversation. And you can find me online at margoscreativelife.com. It's also the same handle for my IG, Margo's Creative Life. I'm also available on Facebook. You can purchase my cookbook, The Expat Kitchen, available on my website, margoscreativelife.com.
Yes. And
Thank
what
you.
was the information for the
The nonprofit? Yes. So it's WOY Inc.org. So What's on Your Mind Incorporated. It's based out of Massachusetts. They also do work throughout the United States. And the founder is a really good friend of mine. Her name is Teresa Alphonse, and she's just doing some really impactful work.
Awesome. As are you. As are you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. So we have just a few wraparound questions.
Yes, let's do it.
Let's do it. Starting with the first one. What's one word that you use to describe yourself?
Oh, I will say creative.
Yes, that is very apropos. And when you think of your favorite country to visit, what country would that be?
Mozambique. Mozambique.
Really?
It's beautiful. The food is amazing. I love going to the beach and being, in the water. So the food is incredible. The culture is super rich. The music is amazing. There's so much that I love about Mozambique.
Right.
Yeah.
So I should add that to my list of travel whenever
Yes.
the world
Go
opens
to
up.
Maputo. Yeah, absolutely. You will love it. Absolutely.
Okay. We've talked about self-care. I'm wondering, what is your favorite thing to do when it comes to caring for yourself?
For self-care. I love candles. Like I will it's like candles and skincare. Yes. That's where my money's going. So for me, it's like skincare and just having a nice candle. Those two things. I'm like, okay, I'm happy.
Love it. So what's one thing that you love about yourself?
That I'm funny. I am funny. But the one thing I really love about myself is just like my positive outlook on life, no matter, what's happened or whatever comes my way. So I'll say that.
That's a great quality to have, one to hone for sure. And when you think about, what book are you reading right now? I'm a nerd.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. I have a few that I'm reading. I finished reading Jessica B. Harris's culinary memoir. It's called My Soul Looks Back. She's a phenomenal culinary historian. She also has a Netflix special that is based off of one of her books called High on the Hog. So I highly recommend people.
You know what?
Oh, okay, great. It's
my hometown is the last city that he visited.
No way.
Huntsville, Texas, where the barbecue was.
Yes.
I am literally from down the street. Girl,
that's amazing. I love High on the Hog. Like everybody should watch it.
It's amazing.
Oh my goodness. It's just, I was like, it's about time because she's a legend and so really amazing. So Jessica B. Harris, any of her work, I highly recommend it. And then I forget the title or the author's name, but it's called Widen the Window.
Okay.
And it's basically about like mental health and how to what happens to us when you endure trauma. So just like learning, I love learning more about like the mental health field. So I'd say those are the two books.
Oh my goodness. So I'll leave you with this last one. Do you have like a preferred go-to inspirational quote that you recite on a daily basis? Would you share that with us?
Absolutely. It's remember the power you possess. My mom would say it to me all the time in Creole. And anytime I was having a hard time or just like not getting school or whatever, she would say that. And like, that's my favorite quote.
Yeah. So do you know can you say it for us in Creole?
Yeah, of course. It's songer pouvoir. Songer ou gain pouvoir. So remember remember the power you possess is the rough translation. But
that was amazing. Like, I just am so grateful for you offering your time and sharing your story in your journey. It has been everything. I really hope that we can stay connected for sure.
We will. We certainly will.
I am so, I don't know you as deeply. I will, but
you will.
I'm proud of,
You.
the trajectory that you've been on, just to see other beautiful Black women living in their power, remembering the power that they have, and gifting that to the world is something to always celebrate. So thank you for
so
trusting
much.
yourself.
Thank
And
you. Thank you for having me. This is like,
using your gift.
you made my day.
You've made mine as well. So I just want to, again, thank Margo for joining us tonight. Thank you, wherever you are in the world, for tuning into Black and Abroad. I encourage you to keep taking risks, keep impacting your communities, and prioritizing your mental health. Please share this in your communities of influence. That's how we spread the message. That's how we grow awareness. And I hope that you will tune in to the next episode. But we are going to say peace, people.
Bye. Thank you.